The station was never meant to feel quiet. Even at night cycle, there were always sounds. Machines breathing through the walls, distant boots on metal floors, low voices carried through vents. But tonight, the silence felt heavy, like the station itself was holding its breath. Ethan Cross noticed it the moment he stepped into his quarters. He paused just inside the door, one hand still near the manual lock. His instincts, sharpened by years in human intelligence service, whispered that something was wrong. The lights were on, dim but steady. Nothing was out of place. His table was clean, his chair untouched. Still, the silence pressed against his ears. He closed the door behind him without fully sealing it, listening. Then he heard it, a soft, uneven breath. Ethan's muscles tightened. His eyes moved slowly across the room until they landed on the far corner near the emergency storage panel. Someone was standing there, barely visible in the low light. "Don't move," Ethan said calmly. The figure stepped forward instead. She was taller than him by a few inches, slender but strong in a way that spoke of a different gravity, a different homeworld. Her skin held a faint silver-blue tone, smooth and unmarked. Large, dark eyes reflected the light, unblinking. She was injured. Dark fluid, alien blood stained the side of her uniform. One arm was pressed tightly against her ribs, her breathing shallow but controlled. Despite the wound, her posture remained proud, almost formal.
Ethan recognized the insignia on her chest immediately. Envoy class.
"What are you doing in my room?" he asked, voice steady, mind racing. She looked at him for a long moment before answering. When she spoke, her voice was low and precise, each word carefully shaped. "You are human Ethan Cross. Clearance level black-gray. Behavioral profile, resistant." That made his grip tighten. "Resistant to what?" he asked. Instead of answering, she took another step forward and stumbled. Ethan moved before thinking. He caught her just before she fell, steadying her weight. She froze at his touch, eyes widening slightly, not in fear, but in surprise. "Easy," he said. "You're bleeding." "I am aware," she replied. "It is manageable." "It's not," he said, guiding her toward the chair. "Sit." For a moment, he thought she would refuse. Her species was known for rigid hierarchy. Orders mattered. Authority mattered. Humans, in their eyes, were chaotic. But she sat. As Ethan reached for the med kit mounted on the wall, the station lights flickered. Once, twice. Then the emergency siren wailed to life. A calm synthetic voice echoed through the station. "Attention all personnel. Station lockdown in effect. External threat detected. Remain where you are." Ethan swore under his breath. He turned back toward the door just as it sealed shut on its own, with a heavy metallic sound. The locking mechanism engaged, the red indicator light glowing steadily. The room was now isolated. The alien envoy watched the door, then looked at him. "You are aware of what that means," she said. "Yes," Ethan replied. "It means no one gets in or out until command clears it. In my culture," she said slowly, "locking oneself in with another during a threat is a declaration." Ethan glanced at her. Of what? Her gaze did not waver. Responsibility. That word lingered in the air. Ethan knelt beside her, opening the med kit. "Let's worry about that after you don't bleed out." As he worked, sealing the wound with practiced efficiency, he noticed how still she was. No flinching, no sharp breaths. Her eyes never left his face. "You're calm," he said. "I am listening," she replied. "To what?" "To you," she said simply. The siren outside stopped. The silence returned, thicker than before. Ethan finished applying the seal and leaned back slightly. "There. That should hold until a medic arrives." She nodded. "They will not." That caught his attention. "Why not?" "Because the threat is already inside the station," she said. "And it listens." Ethan stood slowly. "Listens to what?" She hesitated. "Sound," she said. "Protest." He frowned. "That's specific. My people learned too late," she continued. "Those who cried out were found first. Those who resisted loudly were silenced." Ethan looked at the locked door again. "You came here because you thought I'd be quiet?" he asked. "No," she said. "Because you would choose." He turned back to her. "Choose what?" "Whether to help me," she said. Without command. Before he could respond, the station lights dimmed further. Shadows stretched along the walls. A faint hum vibrated through the floor. Too slow, too deliberate to be normal systems. Ethan felt it then, the sense of being observed. He walked to the door control panel and manually disengaged the automatic release override. The system resisted, flashing warnings, but he forced it into a hard lock. The final seal clicked into place. The room was completely closed. The alien envoy watched him closely. Her breathing slowed. Her shoulders relaxed just a fraction. "You locked it," she said. "Yes," Ethan replied. "You could have left it semi-open," she said. "Allowed extraction." "I know." "Then why?" she asked. "Because if something out there is listening, I don't want it hearing us." For the first time, something like relief crossed her face. She did not ask him to undo it. They stood there, two different species, sealed inside a small human room while something unknown moved through the station beyond the walls. Ethan broke the silence. "You still haven't told me your name." "I am Sci-Fi," she said. "Third voice of the Lithuria Accord." "Ethan Cross," he replied. "Just a guy with a lock and bad timing." Sci-Fi tilted her head slightly. "You underestimate yourself." A faint vibration ran through the door. Not an impact, more like a touch. Soft, curious. Sci-Fi's eyes widened. She did not speak, neither did Ethan. They waited, breathing slow, bodies still. The vibration faded. Minutes passed. Then Sci-Fi spoke again, barely above a whisper. "You have done something rare, human Ethan." "What's that?" "You held power," she said, "and did not use it against me." Ethan exhaled quietly. "Where I'm from, that's just called being decent." Her gaze softened. "Where I'm from," she replied, "it is called dangerous." Outside the room, the station remained silent. Inside, two beings sat in the dark, bound not by force, but by a choice neither of them had expected to make. And somewhere beyond the locked door, something listened, and did not understand what it was. Hearing the silence did not break all at once. It cracked. A low hum returned to the station, slow and uneven, like a giant breathing through metal lungs. The walls of Ethan's quarters vibrated softly. Not enough to shake anything loose, but enough to remind them they were not alone. Sci-Fi remained seated, her back straight, hands resting calmly on her knees. Her eyes stayed fixed on the sealed door. Ethan noticed she had not moved for several minutes. "You can relax a little," he said quietly. "It's gone. For now." She did not look at him. "No," she replied. "It is only listening from farther away." Ethan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You keep saying that thing listens, but you still haven't told me what it is." Sci-Fi turned her head slowly. "Because your species does not yet have a word for it. That's never stopped humans before," he said. She considered this, then nodded once. "Fair." She took a slow breath. "It is not a creature in the way you understand. It has no body that can be wounded easily. It exists between signals, between thoughts. That sounds like a nightmare, not an enemy." "It is both," she said. He pushed off the wall and walked closer, lowering his voice. "Then why attack a station full of armed species? Why not something easier?" Sci-Fi's eyes darkened. "Because this station represents trust. And trust is loud." That sentence stayed with him. Before he could ask more, a faint sound came through the ceiling vents. Not footsteps. Not machines. Whispering. Ethan's head snapped up. His hand moved instinctively toward the sidearm clipped at his hip, though he knew it would be useless against something like this. Sci-Fi noticed the movement. "Do not speak," she whispered. The whispering did not form words. It rose and fell like distant voices arguing underwater. The sound made Ethan's skin crawl, like his thoughts were being brushed by invisible fingers. Sci-Fi closed her eyes. Ethan watched her chest rise and fall in slow, controlled breaths. He copied her rhythm, forcing his own heartbeat to settle. Minutes passed. The whispering drifted away. Only then did Sci-Fi open her eyes again. "You are learning," she said softly. "I don't like learning this," Ethan replied. She almost smiled. The station lights flickered again, then stabilized. The emergency red glow shifted back toward neutral white. Ethan moved to the wall terminal and checked the system status. Large portions of the station were still dark. Communications were limited. Internal sensors were giving conflicting readings. "This thing is messing with the systems," he muttered. "Yes," Sci-Fi said. "It feeds on reaction. Panic authority signals. Your machines are very emotional." He snorted. "Tell that to the engineers." Sci-Fi tilted her head. You joke during danger. It keeps me human, he said, then paused. That came out strange. No, she replied. It makes sense. She rose slowly from the chair, testing her balance. Ethan moved to help, but she waved him off. I can stand, she said. The seal is holding. Barely, he replied.
You shouldn't be walking.
I should not be passive, she corrected. She stepped closer to him, lowering her voice. Ethan Cross, I did not come to your room by chance. I figured, he said. I came because my people are already compromised, she continued. The entity learned how to control us quickly. We are obedient by design. Our neural pathways favor response to authority. It makes us efficient. It also makes us vulnerable. Ethan's jaw tightened. And humans? You resist, she said simply, even when you should not, especially when you should not. He looked at her for a long moment. So I'm your shield. No, she said. You are a variable. Before he could respond, the door panel lit up. An incoming request. Ethan cursed under his breath. Someone's trying to override the lock. Sarai stiffened. Do not answer. Ethan hesitated. If it's command, it will sound like command, she said. That is how it enters. The panel chimed again. Ethan Cross, a calm voice said through the speaker. This is station security. Please unlock your door for inspection. Ethan felt a cold chill run down his spine. The voice was perfect, calm, official. Familiar. Too familiar. He leaned close to the panel without speaking. Ethan, the voice continued, we have detected an unauthorized presence in your quarters. Failure to comply will result in forced entry. Sarai's hand brushed his arm lightly. He looked at her. She shook her head once. Slowly, carefully, Ethan pressed the response button. No, he said. Silence followed. Then the voice changed. Not louder, not angrier, colder. Ethan Cross, it said. Your refusal is illogical. You are human. Humans respond to threat. Ethan smiled grimly. Not all threats. The panel went dark. A moment later, something pressed against the door. Not physically. Ethan felt it inside his head. A pressure. A suggestion. Images flickered behind his eyes. Open doors, relief, safety. Sarai inhaled sharply but remained silent. Ethan focused on the small details of the room. The scratch on the table, the faint smell of disinfectant, the sound of his own breathing. The pressure eased. Whatever was outside withdrew. Sarai exhaled slowly. You resisted direct contact. Barely, Ethan said. That thing knew my name. Yes, she replied. It learns quickly. Ethan leaned back against the wall, wiping sweat from his brow. Then we can't just hide. It'll keep trying. Sarai nodded. Agreed. So what's the plan? He asked. Because right now, all we've got is a locked door and stubbornness. She met his eyes. Then we use what it does not understand, which is... She gestured around the room. This. 2 individuals. No hierarchy. No commands. Only cooperation. Ethan frowned. You're saying we fight it by not acting like a military? Yes, she said. It expects structure. Reactions. Humans break pattern. He considered that. We'll still need to move. This room won't hold forever. Sarai nodded again. I know. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. There is a core node. Not physical, but anchored to a location. It amplifies the entity's reach. If it is disrupted, the entity weakens. And you know where it is, Ethan said. I do, she replied. But I cannot reach it alone. He sighed. Of course you can't. You are amused, she nodded. Just accepting my luck, he said. Then grew serious. If we leave this room, that thing will notice. Yes, she said, but not immediately. It will hesitate. Why? Because it does not understand why you have not obeyed, she said. Confusion slows it. Ethan chuckled softly. Good. Confusion's kind of our thing. A soft knock echoed through the door. Both of them froze. Not a system alert. Not a voice. A knock. 3 slow taps. Sarai's eyes widened. It is mimicking. Ethan shook his head. No one knocks during lockdown. The knock came again. Ethan, a familiar voice called softly. Open the door! Ethan's throat tightened. It was his sister's voice. Sarai saw his reaction. It is lying, she whispered. I know, he said through clenched teeth. The voice outside continued.
You don't have to be alone. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, then stepped forward. He pressed his palm flat against the door. You picked the wrong memory, he said quietly. She never sounded that calm. The knock stopped. The pressure vanished. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then Sarai spoke. You confronted it. Yeah, Ethan said. Didn't like that. She studied him with something close to awe. Your species turns pain into armor. He shrugged. We don't have much choice. The lights flickered once more, then steadied. Somewhere in the distance, alarms began to shut down. Sarai straightened. The station is adapting. Ethan nodded. Or the thing is pulling back. Either way, she said, this is our window. He looked at the door, then back at her. Once we step out, there's no going back. Sarai met his gaze. I know. He unlocked the door partway. The seal loosened with a soft hiss. They stood side by side, listening. The corridor beyond was dark but quiet. Ethan glanced at Sarai. Stay close. She nodded. Always. Together they stepped into the hallway, leaving the safety of the locked room behind. And somewhere deep within the station, something watched them go and began to learn fear. The corridor swallowed them the moment they stepped out. The lights were off, except for thin emergency strips running along the floor, glowing a dull blue. Shadows clung to the walls like stains. The air felt heavier here, thick with a low vibration that Ethan could feel in his teeth. He eased the door shut behind them, but did not fully lock it this time. Sarai noticed. You left it uncertain, she said. On purpose, Ethan replied. Certainly makes patterns. Patterns make us easy? She studied him for a brief moment, then nodded. You adapt quickly. That's what scares everyone, he said under his breath. They moved slowly down the corridor. Ethan kept his steps light, controlled. Every few meters he paused and listened. No footsteps, no alarms. Just the faint hum of the station's damaged systems. Sarai walked beside him, her posture different now. Less ceremonial, more alert. Her hand hovered near a small device at her waist. Alien technology, unfamiliar but clearly important. You said the core node is anchored, Ethan whispered.
Where?
Near the central observation ring, she replied. It was designed as a neutral space.
Shared by all species. That made it ideal.
For it, Ethan said. Yes. They reached an intersection where 3 corridors met. One led toward habitation, one toward engineering. The third sloped upward toward the observation ring. Ethan stopped. Sarai noticed immediately. What is it? Too quiet, he said. Even for a lockdown. As if responding to his words, a soft sound echoed down the hallway ahead. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Ethan raised a hand, signaling Sarai to stop. They pressed themselves into a recessed doorway as the sound grew closer. A figure emerged from the darkness. Human. Station security uniform. Weapon lowered. Eyes unfocused. Ethan's stomach tightened. Don't engage, Sarai whispered. He is compromised. The man stopped in the middle of the corridor and lifted his head. His gaze locked onto Ethan with unnatural precision. Ethan Cross, the man said. His voice was flat, empty. You are obstructing station safety. Ethan stepped forward slowly, keeping his hands visible. Officer, you don't look safe yourself. The man did not react. Please surrender the alien envoy and return to your quarters. Sarai's jaw clenched. Ethan tilted his head slightly. You didn't say please right. The man blinked. Just once. It was enough. Ethan lunged forward, knocking the weapon from the man's hand. The officer reacted too late, his movements delayed like he was following instructions with lag. They struggled briefly, but Ethan did not strike him. Instead, he pinned the man against the wall, applying pressure to specific points, enough to render him unconscious without injury. The officer collapsed to the floor. Sarai stared. You could have harmed him. He's not the enemy, Ethan said. He's a victim. She absorbed that in silence. As they moved on, Sarai spoke again. My people would have eliminated him. I know, Ethan replied. That's why this thing wins against you. They continued upward. The temperature dropped as they approached the observation ring. Frost clung to the edges of broken panels. The emergency lights flickered erratically now, as if struggling to decide whether to exist. The hum grew louder. Sarai slowed. We are close. Ethan felt it too. A pressure behind his eyes. not painful. Curious, images brushed his thoughts. Stars, open doors, voices calling his name. He clenched his jaw and focused on walking. The observation ring opened before them like a wound in the station, a wide circular chamber with a massive transparent dome above, revealing the endless dark of space. Normally, it was a place of calm. Now it felt wrong. In the center of the room floated something that did not belong. It looked like a distortion in the air. A shimmer like heat over metal, shaped vaguely like a twisting spine. Light bent around it, refusing to settle. Sarai stopped cold. "That is the anchor," she whispered. "It is stronger than I feared." Ethan swallowed. "How do we break it?" She activated the device at her waist. A soft glow surrounded her hand. "This will disrupt the resonance field, but I must get close." "And that'll make it angry," Ethan said. "Yes, good," he replied. "I'm better with angry than curious." They stepped into the chamber. The moment they crossed the threshold, the pressure spiked. The entity reacted. The air vibrated and voices filled the room, not from speakers, but from everywhere. "Ethan Cross, Sarai of the Lithari. You are alone." "That's your first mistake." Figures began to emerge around the edges of the chamber. Crew members. Aliens and humans alike. Their movements were stiff, controlled. Puppets. Sarai's breathing quickened. "It has gathered them." "Yeah," Ethan said quietly. "Figures." The entity's voice deepened. "Obedience ensures survival." Ethan stepped forward, placing himself between Sarai and the anchor. "No," he said. "Choice does." The pressure surged, slamming into his mind. Images flooded him. Failures, regrets, moments of fear. The entity searched for leverage. Ethan gritted his teeth and laughed. "You're digging in the wrong place," he said. "We don't run from this stuff. We carry it." The pressure faltered. Sarai stared at him in disbelief. He glanced back at her. "Do it. Now." She moved. The entity reacted instantly. The controlled crew surged forward. Ethan charged to meet them. He did not fight like a soldier following orders. He moved unpredictably, dodging, disarming, using the environment. He shouted warnings to those who could still hear, dragged others out of the way, refused to strike when he could restrain. The entity hesitated. Every hesitation gave Sarai seconds. She reached the anchor, raising the glowing device. The air screamed, not in sound, but sensation. The entity lashed out. A wave of force threw Ethan across the chamber. He slammed into the floor, gasping. Sarai cried out, but did not stop. She pressed the device against the shimmering core. Light exploded outward. The voices shattered into noise. The controlled crew collapsed where they stood. Ethan struggled to his knees, vision swimming. The entity's presence shrank, pulled inward, destabilized. Sarai staggered back, collapsing beside him. For a moment neither of them moved. Then the hum began to fade. The light stabilized. The observation ring fell silent. Ethan laughed weakly. Still alive. Sarai looked at the fading distortion. "It is not destroyed." "No," he agreed, "but it's hurt." She nodded slowly. "And it is afraid." As if in response, the remaining shimmer pulled inward and vanished, retreating deeper into the station or beyond it. Medical teams began to arrive, moving carefully, weapons ready. Command voices echoed, confused but human again. Ethan lay back against the floor, staring up at the stars through the dome. Sarai sat beside him. "You defied it directly," she said. "You spoke to it as an equal." "I don't do gods or monsters," Ethan replied. "Just problems." She considered that. "Your species should not exist," he smiled faintly. "We hear that a lot." As medics reached them, Sarai placed a hand over Ethan's arm. A brief, deliberate gesture. "Because of you," she said, "my people may survive what we were never meant to face." Ethan closed his eyes as they lifted him onto a stretcher. Then it was worth the headache. Above them, the stars watched in silence. And far away, something ancient and intelligent reconsidered everything it thought it knew about humanity. The station had not yet returned to normal. Lights flickered intermittently, corridors smelled of burnt circuits and recycled air, and scattered debris marked the chaos from the entity's brief but devastating influence. Ethan followed the medical escort back to his quarters, though he knew he would not rest. Too much remained uncertain. Sarai walked beside him, steady but visibly tense. Her species had never encountered humans in this way, calm under pressure, unpredictable, willing to make decisions that defied protocol. That was precisely why she had survived this far. "You realize," she said quietly, "your species' behavior is dangerous to my people." "I'll take that as a compliment," Ethan replied without looking at her. His boots clanked softly against the metal floor. "We break patterns."
We improvise. We don't rely on rituals to stay alive.
Sarai's dark eyes followed him closely. "Improvisation is rare. Necessary, yes, but also terrifying. You act without hierarchy, without coordination, and yet you succeed. Sometimes luck helps too," he said. "Not today," she countered. "Today it was you. Humans think differently, feel differently. That is why the entity hesitated." Ethan paused mid-step. "Entity? You mean that thing? Why would it even care what we think?" "It learns from behavior," Sarai explained. "From the patterns of obedience, of resistance. It studies responses. Your species does not respond predictably. That makes humans invisible and dangerous at the same time." "Great," Ethan muttered, rubbing the back of his neck. "Invisible and dangerous. Just my type of resume." They reached a corner where the hall split. Sarai slowed. "We should check the other affected areas. Containment isn't fully restored." Ethan nodded. "And I suppose I get to lead the unpredictable team." She raised an eyebrow. "Do not underestimate your unpredictability. It is a weapon." They moved cautiously into the main hub, where dozens of station personnel, alien and human alike, had gathered. Many were dazed, still processing what had happened. Equipment hummed uncertainly, some systems offline, others sparking erratically. Ethan approached the nearest group of officers, holding up his hands to show he came in peace. "Listen carefully," he said. "The threat is gone for now, but containment is fragile. We follow orders, yes, but we do not panic."
Move carefully. Watch each other.
The aliens hesitated. Their instinct was to freeze until command gave direction. Ethan crouched slightly to meet the eyes of a young alien soldier. "You know your training. Use it, but trust your judgment too." The soldier blinked, clearly unprepared for this. Most of his species would have relied entirely on structured protocol. Ethan's insistence on individual decision-making was foreign and frightening, but gradually he saw it. Small nods, cautious movements, a few aliens taking initiative to check equipment and secure corridors. Sarai observed silently. She had expected chaos, panic, and blind obedience. Instead, she saw humans leading a hybrid team of species, calmly improvising, correcting mistakes as they happened, and making snap decisions without hesitation. This was not recklessness. This was controlled chaos. And it worked. "You learn fast," she murmured. "I have to," Ethan replied. "Otherwise I die or someone else does." The sound of alarms cut sharply through the hub. Emergency lights flashed, red and blue, and a soft vibration ran under their boots. Ethan froze. "What now?" Sarai's eyes narrowed. Residual activity. "It is probing again, trying to find a new anchor." "Great," Ethan muttered. "I thought we already had enough anchors to deal with." "No," she said, her voice serious. "It adapts. Every failure teaches it something new. That is why humans are useful."
Ethan glanced at her. "Useful?"
"You mean dangerous?" "Both," she replied. "You act without instinctive fear, without default compliance. That forces it to hesitate, and hesitation is its weakness." The hub doors suddenly opened, and a group of junior engineers rushed in. They carried damaged equipment and began patching compromised circuits under Ethan's instructions. Some aliens followed, unsure but attentive. Ethan barked simple orders. "Patch the vent sensors first. Sarai, check the communication nodes. Don't assume they're safe. Watch for anomalies." "Yes," she said, already moving. Minutes passed in tense, coordinated activity. The team moved like clockwork under Ethan's unpredictable guidance. He did not issue rigid commands. He suggested, warned, adjusted, and let people make quick decisions. Each human-led action forced the aliens to rethink their assumptions about efficiency and survival. Sarai noticed patterns she had never seen before. Humans improvised not recklessly, but intelligently. They accepted responsibility for mistakes and adjusted. They did not wait for approval, nor did they defer automatically to higher rank. Every decision carried weight, and the humans carried it willingly. "This is remarkable," Sarai said, speaking to Ethan as they moved along the hub perimeter. "What's remarkable?" he asked. "You, your species. You lead without dominating. You take responsibility, but you do not demand obedience. That is, Alien to my people. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe that's why we survive. As they moved through the hub, a soft shimmer appeared at the far end, a residual echo of the entity. The distorted space shimmered faintly, reacting to their presence. Sarai stiffened. It remembers, it observes. It is, learning from this room. Ethan crouched behind a workstation, then let it learn that humans don't behave predictably. That's all it knows how to do. Predict. Sarai stepped closer. Do you realize how dangerous this is? It could strike again. Ethan shrugged. Then we make it strike on our terms. They advanced carefully, inspecting each corner. Ethan noticed an alien engineer struggling with a damaged panel. The engineer froze when the shimmer shifted toward him. Ethan stepped forward, placed a hand on his shoulder, and whispered calmly, "Focus on your work." "Ignore it. It cannot control you if you refuse." The engineer hesitated, then nodded. The panel sparked briefly but stabilized. Ethan felt a surge of satisfaction. One small victory, but it mattered. Sarai watched, impressed. Humans do not fear what they cannot see. That is extraordinary. They continued systematically, clearing areas, checking systems, and gradually regaining control. The residual presence of the entity became weaker with each action. Its shimmer flickered, indistinct, unable to anchor itself in the chaotic human-led environment. By the time they reached the main control room, most of the hub had regained partial function. Aliens and humans alike were working together, still cautious, still uncertain, but acting. Sarai studied the scene carefully. Your species is a paradox, weak in structure, strong in will. That combination is deadly. Ethan smirked. I'll take deadly if it keeps the station alive. The control room lights flickered. Ethan approached the main terminal. We need to stabilize communications. If the entity comes back, we must coordinate quickly. Sarai joined him, scanning the panels. I can send a neural pulse to disrupt it temporarily, but it requires perfect timing. Perfect timing? Ethan groaned. Is there any other kind? She ignored the comment, already preparing the device. Ethan watched as she calibrated it with precise motions. If we succeed, she said, the entity will be forced into a retreat. Its learning will be delayed. Better than nothing, Ethan muttered. Together they executed the plan. The pulse emitted a low-frequency vibration through the station, subtle but unmistakable. The shimmer flickered violently and withdrew from the hub entirely. Lights returned to normal. Communication systems stabilized. A deep silence filled the station, heavier this time but free of the entity's oppressive presence. Ethan exhaled deeply. We did it. Sarai looked at him with admiration and something else. Something human. You led without commanding. You allowed others to choose. That is why we survived. Ethan shrugged. We just did what needed to be done. No one got to boss us around and no one panicked. That's all. But it is more than that, she said softly. It is a lesson my people must learn. Leadership does not require dominance. Strength is in choice, responsibility, and courage. He nodded. Then let's hope they listen. As the medics and engineers began fully restoring the station, Ethan and Sarai stepped back. For a moment they were just two beings, human and alien, standing together, exhausted but unbroken. Sarai's voice broke the silence. You have changed the outcome not because of your weapons or your strength or even your experience. Because of who you are. Ethan looked at her. Who I am.
You act as a human should, she said.
Not perfect, not idealized. You improvise, you endure, and you take responsibility for your actions. That is rare across the galaxy. Ethan chuckled softly. Funny. I just thought I was doing my job. Doing your job? She said, shaking her head. You have done more than that. You have taught survival in a way my species cannot comprehend. Without hierarchy. Without ritual. Without fear of defiance. That is why humans endure. He leaned back against the wall, finally letting himself rest. Then I guess we make a good team, huh? Sarai regarded him carefully. Perhaps humans and Lithery working together? It may redefine what is possible. Ethan smiled faintly. I don't care about redefining the galaxy. I just want to make it through tonight. She allowed a small smile in return. Then we have both achieved our goal. Survival. Above them, the stars glimmered through the station's observation dome. The silence no longer felt oppressive, but alive with possibility. Somewhere far beyond, the entity recalculated. It had been defeated, for now, not by force, but by human unpredictability, courage, and choice. Sarai turned to Ethan. The danger is not fully gone. It will return, but now it fears you. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Fears me? Yes, she said. Because you do not act as expected. That is something no entity has learned to anticipate, he smirked. Then I guess I'm more dangerous than I thought. Sarai studied him in silence, and for the first time Ethan felt her species' respect, quiet, profound, and earned. And somewhere in the shadows of the station, the entity pulsed faintly, retreating into the darkness, forced to wait, forced to learn, forced to confront something new, the unpredictability of humans. The station was alive again, but it was different. Emergency lights flickered less frequently. The hum of the power grid returned to normal. Personnel moved with cautious confidence. Aliens and humans alike checked equipment, patched systems, and shared information. The chaos that had gripped the station hours ago had been replaced by a fragile, determined order. Ethan walked slowly through the corridors, his boots echoing lightly on the metal floors. Sarai stayed beside him, her steps silent and precise. Every now and then, she glanced around, alert to the slightest anomaly, but the station itself seemed to breathe, easier, calmer. You did it, she said quietly, almost to herself. Ethan raised an eyebrow. We did it. Don't take all the credit. No, she said, shaking her head slightly. It is your species that made this possible. Humans do not respond to fear in the way others do. You act because you choose to. That is something alien minds cannot predict. Ethan smirked faintly. I just did what needed to be done. She studied him with her large dark eyes. That is exactly why it worked. Because you did not rely on instinctive obedience, protocol, or fear. You relied on reasoning, courage, and choice. They reached the main hub, where Station Command had begun to re-establish communications. Aliens moved under human guidance, not waiting for orders, but making decisions as individuals, coordinated yet independent. Ethan's presence alone seemed to have empowered them to think differently. Sarai watched the scene carefully. Your species teaches survival in ways my people cannot imagine. You do not need hierarchy to act. You do not need ritual to make decisions. You take responsibility because it is the right choice, not because you are told to. Ethan nodded slowly. We've been doing that for centuries. Not perfect, but it works. She tilted her head slightly. And that is what terrifies the entity. Yeah, Ethan muttered, because it thinks everything can be predicted, and humans cannot be predicted. The station's intercom crackled. Attention all personnel. External threat containment has been restored. Full systems check is underway. Resume standard operations with caution. Ethan glanced at Sarai. They'll probably want to debrief you, or me, or both. She shook her head. That is irrelevant. What matters is what you did. The entity is forced to retreat. For now, your species has bought time. Not just for this station, but for others like it. Ethan let out a long breath. Feels like more than time. Feels like we actually made a difference. Sarai nodded. You did. And your choice, your resistance to fear and blind obedience, it will echo beyond this place. Others will learn. He looked at her carefully. Others? The entity studies patterns, she said. It has learned that humans cannot be controlled in the same way as others. That knowledge will spread to my people. We will teach what we saw. We will prepare. We will survive. Ethan finally allowed himself to sit on the edge of a workstation, exhausted but satisfied. And here I thought tonight would be another boring station patrol. She smiled faintly, an almost human gesture. You have done more than survive. You have changed perspectives, saved lives, and preserved trust in ways we have never seen. He laughed softly, a sound that echoed lightly in the hub. I just reacted. I didn't overthink it. Guess that's why humans are scary. Sarai's gaze softened. You are more than scary. You are exemplary. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Exemplary, huh?
That's a new one.
Perhaps, she said, but it is true. The station began to quiet further as medics and engineers finished their rounds. Some of the aliens who had once hesitated now moved with confidence, a spark of independence in their behavior. Sarai observed them, taking mental notes. Your species teaches by example. That is powerful. Ethan nodded. We call it leadership. Not by force, but by choice. A small commotion drew their attention. A group of officers had cornered a junior human engineer, holding a device that emitted a faint pulse, residual energy from the entity. "Step back," Ethan ordered, careful. He approached the engineer and gently guided him away. "Focus on the device, but don't panic. Slow and steady." The engineer complied, his hands shaking slightly but controlled. The alien officers watched, surprised at how calmly Ethan instructed. By the time they finished neutralizing the device, no harm had come to anyone, and the residual pulse was contained. Sarai turned to Ethan. "You remain calm, even when chaos surrounds you. That is unusual. Extraordinary, even." Ethan shrugged. "Years of practice. You get used to it. You don't let panic decide what you do." "Your species' adaptability is remarkable," she said. "It cannot be overstated." Ethan looked around at the hub. Humans and aliens working together, improvising, correcting, learning. "Wait until my species faces something truly impossible. We don't quit. We adapt." Sarai nodded thoughtfully. "That will be a lesson my people will never forget. And perhaps the entity will learn it too, eventually." Ethan's gaze fell to the floor for a moment. "I just hope we've bought enough time, that it won't find a way to come back sooner than expected." She placed a hand on his shoulder lightly. "Then we make sure we are ready next time. Your species has already shown the way, independent, resourceful, and unafraid to challenge expectations. That is the future." He smiled faintly. "Funny. I just thought I was doing my job." "No," she said. "You were doing more. You were leading." Ethan shook his head, smiling. "I'm no hero. Just human." Sarai looked at him seriously. "That is precisely why you succeeded. Not because you are perfect, but because you are human. You make mistakes. You endure. And you choose." Ethan exhaled slowly. "Then I guess humans really are scary when we want to be." She allowed a faint smile. "Scary, yes, but also necessary. And respected." Across the hub, personnel continued their work, slowly restoring systems, checking corridors, and securing the station. The entity had retreated, but the lessons it left behind lingered. Humans, with their choice-driven courage, had become the unexpected shield, the unpredictable force that the galaxy would have to reckon with. Sarai looked out through the observation dome. Stars stretched endlessly into the void, silent witnesses to the station's recovery. She spoke softly, almost to herself. "Humans, your species may be the greatest hope in situations we never thought survivable." Ethan glanced at her, raising an eyebrow. "Hope, huh? I'll take that over chaos any day." She turned to him. "You have done more than survive, Ethan Cross. You have inspired, you have preserved, and you have taught a lesson no entity can unlearn. Humans do not follow fear. They lead by choice." He looked around once more, seeing humans and aliens working together, systems coming back online, and the station slowly returning to life. He allowed himself a small moment of satisfaction. "Then I guess we actually made a difference tonight." "Yes," she said softly. "And that difference will echo far beyond this station." Ethan laughed quietly. "Far beyond." I like the sound of that. Sarai studied him, her expression serious. "Remember this, human Ethan. Do not need to dominate to lead. You do not need fear to inspire. Your species' strength is in the courage to choose. That is what the galaxy must learn." Ethan nodded slowly. "Then let's make sure it does." Above them, the stars shone through the station's observation dome, silent but knowing. Far beyond, the entity retreated into the darkness, learning the hard truth that humans cannot be controlled, predicted, or dominated in the ways other species could. And somewhere in the silent void, the galaxy took notice. Because one human soldier and one determined alien envoy had faced the impossible together and shown that courage, choice, and intelligence could defeat even a foe that seemed invincible. Ethan crossed his arms and leaned against a console. "Guess we're not done yet, though, huh?" Sarai's eyes met his. "But now you have shown the way." He smirked faintly. "Good, I like showing the way." And for the first time in hours, the station felt truly safe. Not because the threat was gone forever, but because humanity had reminded the galaxy why it endured. Because humans choose to, and in that choice, they were unstoppable. The stars stretched endlessly above them, indifferent yet bearing witness to the courage, the choices, and the strength of humans, and the quiet respect of those who had learned from them. Ethan took a deep breath. All right. Let's see what the rest of this galaxy thinks about us. Sarai smiled faintly. They will learn, eventually. Because humans, you do not yield. And in that truth, the station and the galaxy beyond had reason to hope.